everybody. Brian Bush, Top Crop Alliance. If you're watching these videos in order, this should be video number 5 coming at you now. So we're through with the first line, the foundation of the yield pyramid. We're on the second line here. So in particular, we're ready for planter pass. So what goes into the planter pass? You know, some of you immediately are going to think planter pass and think, it's the equipment I use. Is it that old tie drill versus the high-speed John Deere planter? Well, I think we would all kind of guess one of these may be a little more precise than the other one. Is it taking a step further even, looking at even more planter equipment? Is it furrow jets and nitrogen placement, fertilizer placement, not on the seed, now off to the side of the seed? Is it conceal? We're actually putting our 2x2 fertilizer off to the side, measured, perfectly metered out. Is it even hydraulic row cleaners, raising and lowering at the right time from the touch of a cab? Yes, but when you think about planter pass can be all of these. But I also step back and go planter pass. Is planter pass the conditions on the day you plant? You know, many times we get the question, ring, ring, springtime, hey, you know that Smith farm, you know, 80% of it's fit to go. 80% is great, but 20% is not. What do you think? Should I plant that or not? And there's so many different factors that go into that. But many times the planter pass is, do I have the guts, do I have the strength to, when I see an open seed slot, stop, pull the planter out of the field, and go back to the barn? This impacts so many things. When we have an open seed slot there, you've got slugs that love to come out of this residue and just feed right down there and kill all the corn or the soybeans that are there. When you do this, we often have smeared sidewalls, so we're restricting roots going sideways. In many cases too, with the pressure on those root units going down, we're restricting putting a concrete layer underneath those roots. What kind of yield potential do these plants have if we're in the field when it's that wet out there? You know, I live in the real world. Sometimes that's what we're going to do, but we just need to know that when we're doing that, we're capping our yield potential on those fields. Soybeans. How many times you work the ground, everything's going great, good planting depth, I go out and plant, and then that night I get that heavy packing rain, that 2 inches that comes down, and the top seals over. We can question what the future's going to be, what the weather forecasts are. That's not my goal. My goal is to remember the day we choose to go out there and plant impacts more than just that one day of our lives. It impacts this crop from that point all the way forward here. Planting depth. You know, how deep do you plant your corn? That second knuckle, right? Well, on some guys, that's 1.25 inches. Some guys, it's 2 inches. I would much rather leave shade on the heavier side, the deeper side of that. You know, 1.75 inches, 2 inches depth. Soybeans, let's be a solid 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches in that situation there. There's lots of reasons why planting deeper helps us out. Sometimes it can bite us, no question. But you gotta know your ground too and what you have to do to manage that. Sometimes it's avoid that last tillage pass that works things up so nice, so too fine. But if you got ground that won't seal, go a bit deeper. I'd rather see that. Big thing to remember, the day you pour that seed into the planter, you go to the field, we have 100% yield potential. Once we open that bag and go to the field, all we do from that point forward is cut yield potential on that field. So now, it doesn't go in the bag. I get that, you know, completely. If we're going to do something stupid, I'd rather do something a little stupid in April than I would in June. But that being said, making smart choices here. Sometimes you just have to say, I've got to go. I may be capping my yield potential. I may be cutting bushels off the top end, but I'm going to choose to do that. Do that with a conscious mind versus putting your head in the sand and saying, nope, it's all good. I still have 400 bushel potential or 300 bushel potential, whatever your number is. Because we probably don't in those situations here. So no matter what your equipment is, the field conditions, the depth you plant, probably matters as much, if not more, to that situation here, towards our final yield. Next one here's nitrogen. And everybody's gonna say, finally nitrogen. I know nitrogen's important to me here. So how much is nitrogen important to you? That's another thing too. You know, I kind of showed on one of the earlier graphs there, one of the previous videos, about how much nitrogen we need at different yield levels. So part of the Top Crop digital service is we do variable rate nitrogen for guys. So I pull out a subset of customers here, trying to get a random assortment of different operations where we help manage nitrogen. So we put our soils into 6 different buckets. We go from low, average, high, high, and then that special soil that just for fun and kicks, it's just some badass soils. So when you look at this, we see our TA yield, the actual observed yield, especially in 2023 for corn, it increased every single level up here. So that tells me, I think we feel like we have our soils characterized quite well. We know which are our low yielding soils from the higher yielding soils. Our yield targets on those. So this is what we observed. This is what we were shooting for. So you can see down through here, about even through our average high, we hit our yield goals on these lower acres. Probably because we got too dry, we ran out of moisture. We just didn't quite hit our yield goals, yield targets on the high and on that badass top end soil. Several acres of those, but I want to show you this for one reason. Not to tell you that we can hit yield targets pretty closely to what we're shooting for. How much nitrogen are we putting on there? So in this situation here, we're recommending different nitrogen rates based off of the yield targets in those parts of the field. So we go from 144 bushel on our low yielding acre to 282 on average for a high yielding acre, which tells us our nitrogen use efficiency. How many pounds of nitrogen are we putting on the number of bushels we're seeing out there? We look across many operations. And the previous chart on the last video shows it as well. Higher yielding corn needs more nitrogen per bushel to achieve those numbers. We're just not as efficient at these higher levels as what we can be at the lower yield levels. It's harder to get these higher bushels here. So as you think about nitrogen, are you changing your nitrogen rates as you get to higher yielding soils? Many farm publications you're going to look at are going to talk about being more efficient. The more you split your nitrogen up as well, we can be more efficient with that. If you're doing some of your burn down, some of your starter, early side dress, maybe it's a wide drop, maybe it's even through a pivot. You can get by, you can move this NUE number down. But the more nitrogen you put out in one shot, one big time there, it's not going to be as efficient because the soil is a horrible place to store nitrogen. So, hope that helps. It takes more nitrogen to raise higher yielding corn. We'll stop on this one for video number 5 and pick up back up in the next one. Thank you.